Hi, this is Pappy. I'm going to be going over a tutorial mission here. It's not a traditional tutorial, it is a custom mission I made myself. You may hear some noises in the background. I'm in my office here, but it's pretty open, and my wife and kids, you might hear them talking, screaming in the back. That's normal, so please forgive that. So I'm going to open up a mission here. I made a custom mission here. It's an Atlas rocket with 2 orbits, so we'll go into it here. As you can see here, we're launching in Mercury. The vehicle is Atlas booster. We're going to be on the pad. It's going to be cold and dark, T-minus 90 minutes. So sometimes this just takes a little while to load up. Alright, we're here in the cockpit. Inside the Mercury rocket here, we can kind of zoom out an exterior view. And you can see us sitting here. You can see the pads being moved away from the rocket. Let's go back into the cockpit. See, it's currently dark. Nothing's on. So let me use V to get rid of the view selector. Not going to need that. I pretty much memorized my view command, so I'm able to use that for the mission. Hit M to bring up the mission pad. So gives you a few different options here. Missions. So the current mission here is Atlas. I want to do 2 orbits. Orbital mission, 2 orbits, landing Atlantic Ocean. Launch time is 9:30 local. Again, the parameters: orbit Earth twice, splashdown Atlantic. There's nothing much to this here. You can see we're at the Cape. So let's just go and get into the checklist here. So the way I have the checklist set up currently is that it's going to initiate run. So it's going to pop up, it's going to automatically preview the checklist. Blue is pending changes, and the green is in the correct configuration. So we're just going to look around here. So I'm going to hit the run command. We'll kind of go through this. The top right shows where the switch is, what the switch is, what position it needs to be in. You can see the bottom left here has a little blue. I just scroll around. You kind of see where that item is. Hit the since we're cold and dark currently, hit the aft to put the flashlight on. You can take a look here. There's main 1, 3, ISO, these are batteries here. Same thing on this side. So the checklist calls for turning on battery 1, going back over, turning on battery 2, battery 3, main battery 3, and then standby 1, 2, and ISO battery. So main batteries, you have 3 main batteries, you have 2 backup batteries. ISO battery is basically for like reentry and things like that. They're on its own separate circuit. It's a safety measure. The next step here is on the left console. It's to flip all the breakers. These are all fuses here, not breakers, to the 1 up position. So we'll just hit all these. We're just clicking away. See, as I complete it, it's moving down next on the checklist. Let's kind of look here. All fuses, number 1 position, so we're still doing that. There's 6 more switches on the right side of the main instrument panel. We'll flip those on. Okay. All right. The next thing to do is switch to off. So this one's already set to off. So again, this we'll move on to the next item in the checklist if it's already in the right position. But we'll just use this as a reference and go through the checklist directly. So switch is off. Squib is off. Retro jet switch to arm, check. Again, ASC has mode select switches, norm, auto, and gyro norm. And the same thing here with the control fuel handles, manual, roll, and yaw, and pitch are all in. Alright, retro delay switch. Instead of normal, I'm going to switch to instantaneous. The same thing, the photo lights, switch those on. Cabin lights, we'll turn them on, both. So I'll go flip around my flashlight off here. And we're going to go through the checklist. So it kind of moved through a bunch of these quickly, so we're just going to look through them individually. So rescue switch is on auto at the bottom. Control launch switch is off because we're not ready to launch yet. That's kind of the astronaut's way of saying he's ready. So we'll go through all these here. So the jet tower ring is in. So you see it's out, it's in. So the left click is in. Set cap is in. We're going to go down here and retro attitude is in auto. The fire retro switch and the jet retro switches here are guarded. So see this here, left click, right click adds it back. So it's a 2-button click action for these, so it protects it from accidentally hitting it. So I want to make sure those are guarded so they don't get triggered accidentally. Retract scope switch, that's going to be to auto. Again, it's going to retract this periscope automatically or not. You can do it manually. Switch to manual here, then you use this item down here to manually push it in or out. Next part, the ring, snorkel, main, shoot ring, and the reserve ring are all going to be in. So you can see they're all in there, reserve. And the landing bag switches to auto. So essentially a landing bag, it just, the heat shield pushes out and there's a bag to absorb the impact when you land. So, going back up here to some gauges. So we're going to look at the control rods. The left one's the auto tank, the right one's the main. They're both at 100%. That's what we want. Rated is set in 0. We're not moving currently. Altimeter, we're at sea level 0. That's what it's going to show. Again, accelerometer is going to be at 0 because we're not moving either. What's the next part here? Alright, we're going to move up to the clock. That's this guy here. So that's the right time. So what's currently? 8:06 a.m. So showing 8:06 a.m. That's correct. Time to launch is 0. Correct. Or time from launch. Time to retrograde. That's correct. So I already pre-calculated this out to do a retro at the right time. But currently, after launch, it's going to be 2 hours, 57 minutes, 30 seconds. So retro. So that's correct. Attitude and rate indicators. That's this guy up here. So attitude. You have 3 different gyros. Shows you current roll attitude, yaw attitude, pitch. Pitch is 90. We're straight up here. Rate indicators. You have 3 lines in here, each indicating for roll, yaw, and pitch. They're all in the center. That means we don't have any rate changes currently. Time 0 cover. So essentially, it wants us to remove. So I'm going to left click that. So what happens, at launch, the clock should start clicking here, start counting up. If it doesn't, you hit the button, and it should manually start the clock. That's just one of the memory items on a launch, is make sure the clock is running. If not, then hit the time 0. It'll start the clock, but removed it because we want to immediately hit the button. When we look at the cabin pressure, so it shows high right here. That's normal. It's expected. It's a high cabin pressure at launch. Then it bleeds off air until it hits about 5.5 psi. So that's one of the checks we do at launch, is to make sure that the cabin air is bleeding. And once it hits 5, like in between 6 and 5, it should maintain that. So that's an action item. Cabin air, that looks about right. It's not too hot, not too cold. It should be ambient air temperature about. Suit environment indicators. That's these 2 here. The left one is the temperature. The right one's pressure. So this one's going to be maintained. It's about 8 psi. I guess it's off the scale. I'm not sure, but it's about 90 degrees. That's about good for right now. Suit environment indicator. So we just looked at that. Engine oxygen quantity. So you have 2 tanks, primary and secondary tanks. So you want to make sure they're about 100% each. Alright, next thing we're going to do is suit fan switch normal, which we will do. We're going to go ahead and move through some of these checklist items to the top right, so it keeps in check with what we're doing here. Rate indicators centered, Lights indicators checked. Removed. Cabin pressure, air temp are checked. Suit, environment, oxygen. Okay, so, alright. Suit fan's already at normal. Cabin fan should be norm, so that's to the right. DC volt knobs are already at main. Ammeter switch is currently powered off. ASCS AC bus should be at norm. We'll switch up to norm there. Standby battery switch is on. ISO battery switch on to standby. Inlet power switch is just here. It's a norm or bypass is beyond norm. Audio bus switch is on norm. AC voltmeter, that's this guy down here. Should be reading about 115. So somewhere in between 109 and 121 volts, and it is. So it looks good there. I'll hit Pro. Vox power switch. That's right here. And it's off right now. You see it also turns on your radios too at the bottom here. UHF DF switch is to hit the normal, so it's going to be to the right. Actually, well, DF that's here, the right. Norm. The next switch high power, so we switch from low power to high power. Transmit, it's going to be on off. It's going to be in the middle. There's the HF off and UHF. Beacon switch is on ground command. And the same thing, all audio tone switches are set to on. These little lights come on. They're little warning lights. The switch turns on the audio portion of the alert. So we're turning all of them on there. Where are we at here? Warning light switch is set to bright. And so at the dim or bright, depending. Usually set them to dim when we cross into the dark or at nighttime. Emergency O2 switch. So you have this guy, you push in to it's normal, pull out to hit the emergency. You see the emergency O2 has come on. Okay. And the final things we do, essentially we set the temperature pressures to the takeoff mark is 3. So we move all those to 3. And the final thing we do is we maneuver, set that to on. So this is going to start the gyros for the attitude and rate indicators. And you can see here, it takes about 5 minutes to spin up, so that's fine. So we're done with the interior inspection, so there's really nothing to do until we're at T-minus 40 minutes. So we'll go and, time warp a little bit here to get us there, so we're not spending all this time waiting. We're at 100 times, 200 times. We're at about 40 minutes here. We'll hit the 1. Alright. So we're at T-minus 40 minutes. We're going to do the abort capabilities test. Again, I can hit the run on this. And it shows your amp meter is going to be the norm. Capsule squib switch is armed. DC selector is going to be the ISO battery. There we go. And right now it's 0 amps. You can see the volts, so it's available. It's not in use currently. So we're going to request via the C command for bringing these options, or you could not that one here. This one here. You can also do that to do that. And we're going to hit the request abort capabilities test. You see here the DC amps come alive and the abort light is on. That's what we're looking for. Make sure the volts are still good, and they are. And they go back, the test is done, lights off, amps are off. That's a good test. Now again, the next thing is not until the abbreviated interior check. We'll go and time skip for that too. At 35 minutes now. Alright, T-minus 20 minutes. We're going to start the abbreviated interior checklist. So it already went through a whole bunch of things. So we're just going to go through it. So all left panel switches, number 1. So this is the left panel. They're all in the 1 position. We set that already. Switch is armed. Auto retro jet switches on. It's armed. ASC its mode selects, and the gyros norm, auto, and gyro norm. That's correct. Retro delay switch needs to be set back to arm. Rescue switch is still in auto down here. Make sure the pressure regulator handle, this guy up here, is in. Left click in, right click's out. Retro attitude switch, that's this guy right here. It's not bypassing auto, confirm. Recheck scope switch is an auto. Landing bag switch down here is auto. So there's a middle off. But we're going to have the auto in case of emergency, in case of an import. Again, something else is, part of the original checklist wants you to write down some items here. We're not really going to do that, but it wants you to double check. Make sure we're 100% in both control fuels. Cabin pressure looks good here. Cabin air temp is good. Suit hasn't really changed. Oxygen still 100% on both tanks. It wants us to go ahead and switch to let's take a look here. I'm going to miss a couple things. Suit fan to norm. Cabin fan norm. DC volt knobs to main. Ampere switch is on norm already. Standby battery switch is on. ISO batteries to standby. Inlet valve power switch is on norm. Audio bus switch is on norm. Yeah, it's abbreviated the original one. There are some changes, but it hits a lot of the same things. Fan AC bus switch is on norm. Audio bus switch on norm. Fan AC bus switch. That's one we looked at. I'm kind of hitting the same ones here. Vox power switch. It's an off. VHF DF switch. The norm. VHF select switch, high power, transmit, it's off, the middle. Beacon switches, instead of ground, it's going to be continuous. Emergency O2 handle norm. So that's pretty much it for this one. That's T minus 20 minutes. Now we're going to go forward to the T minus 10 when we switch to internal power. Alright, T minus 10. Go ahead and run this command here. Essentially, the first thing, if we hit C again, or hit the option to switch to internal power, and you see the DC amps come alive now. This is what we want. Hit Pro. Essentially, we're switching the ISO batteries back to norm, and the standby batteries off, so it's using the main batteries. And now we're on internal power. We got good amps, good volts, and we can look at. So this is the inverter. Combines them all. Bat 1, Bat 2, Bat 3. Standby bats are off. If I were to hit the on button, then it'll come on. They're not being used. Standby 2, ISO. Again, ISO is not used at the moment. Go back to main. The final pre-launch checklist is the final checks that in between T-5 and launch. I'll go ahead and scoot a little bit forward, save some time. Alright, T-4 minutes. We'll do the final checklist here. Launch control switch. We are now ready for launch. Suit temp. Takeoff mark. Cabin temp. Takeoff mark. Inverter temp. Takeoff mark. Transmit. We're going to set this to UHF. Perform a radio check. Alright, loud and clear in UHF. If I were to switch this to HF, radio check. I'm also reading good on HF. So switch back to HF here. Did that. Again, verify that time 0 button is unguarded. And it is. Yeah, and it says again, warning, don't depress it, then it'll start to clock. You don't want to do that yet till launch. It's a backup in case it doesn't work at launch. Alright, we're going to switch back to the BAT1 on the indicator. And again, verify squibs are armed and the auto red check switch is armed. And we're good to go. Now we're just waiting on ascent. So remind us about 3 minutes. I'm going to time skip a little forward. It'll automatically stop about 15 seconds to launch. So again, going through this checklist here, we want to monitor, make sure the port light doesn't come on. If it does, then we initiate port procedures, depending on what mode we're in. Make sure we're going to check the batteries, make sure they're all operating correctly. The volts, the meters, and we are launching now.
Roger, the clock is operating. We're underway. Loud and clear. Roger, we're programming and roll okay.
And descent is
a little bumpy along about here. Roger.
So there's no port light.
Stand by for 20 seconds. Roger. 2, 1, mark.
Alright. Sorry about that little delay there. I wasn't hearing really the audio. So we're launching here. We're about 40 seconds into launch. Again, we're just watching everything. Cycling through the different batteries. Make sure they look okay. Haven't lost anything. Cabin pressure is coming down. That's what we expect. Take a look at outside. Launching. Going through the clouds. We already did a roll program. We're in pitch. You see, we're at 90. We pitched over about 30 degrees now, 40 degrees. Rolls neutral now. Yaw is at 180. Again, plus 1 minute 20, 60,000 feet climbing. And cabin pressure is holding around 5, so that's good. We're going to do this until we have booster engine cut out. So, there's a difference here. I have the checklist. When engine cut off is a redstone or if it's an Atlas. It depends on what checklist you do. The monitoring systems, engine cut off. I'm going to go ahead and take advantage and set up my run to automatically start going at the next. So we're just waiting for engine cut off. We're going through looking at it. The port lights off. Accelerometer is still going. We're climbing. We're off gauge. Alright, we have BECO. Okay. Alright. Jet tower's on amber, so waiting now for go green. About 20 seconds after. Tower's going to jet. It's going to fly off. And waiting for that to happen. Yep. Tower jet screen. I saw it launch. Now we're going to set the auto red jets to off and turn off some fuses. Retro jets fuse off and emergency retro off. And we're going to set ourselves up for the SECO checklist. Now we're pretty much at altitude. We're just basically gaining speed. We can go like this for a few minutes here. We're only at 3 minutes, so probably a couple more minutes, and then we'll be in orbit. See our attitude here. I'm burning for speed. Lost the booster set here. It's just a single rocket now. So again, after SECO, essentially we're going to look for the capsule SEP. So we're going to detach from the booster. And once that happens, the automatic flight control is going to take over. We're going to put us into retro attitude automatically after SEP. And then we'll be basically facing the booster. We're plus 4 minutes now. 4 minutes, 25 seconds. This is all automatic. I mean, there's these Mercuries, you have really no control. I have no idea what my altitude is right now. Everything's kind of relying on mission control. And I'm not running these commands yet at the top right here because I'm just kind of waiting. I use this to kind of let me know, what I'm looking at here. I'm looking at the separate capsule at SECO, single engine cutoff. All right, SECO. All right, it turned amber and green. It's green now. Look at the orbit checklist. You see we're automatically rotating around. Set the automatic, everything's in auto mode. And in the retro attitude, it's going to put us retro automatically. Alright, so DC volts knob, back to main. This is the orbit checklist now. Landing bag switch, set to off, middle position. Retro delay, switch is normal. That means it's going to run on the command there. So we got 2 hours and 51 minutes. We're going to turn off some switches, like emergency retro switch, drogue switch off. We're just going to check the instruments. So let's go around the horn here. Accelerometer is 0. We're in 0G. Control, fuel rods. Pretty close. The manual is at 100%. We did burn a little bit on rotating around the retrograde, so that's expected. But that looks pretty good. We're not descent. All these are operating correctly. Attitude looks right, so it's set to 000 for retrograde attitude, so that looks right. Rates are nulled. We got the wind that look nulled. See, there's the booster there. We move down a little bit. You can see it. There's the booster there. Clock is good. Look at the map here over Bermuda. That looks about right. We're looking backwards, so Bermuda would be down here. Clock is good. It's been 7 minutes since launch. Cabin pressure is holding 5.5. Cabin air is looking good. Suit environment looks good. We're holding 5.5, 90 degrees. I would say it's pretty hot for me. Put that down. It's going to come down. The temperature is going to come down a little bit, but also the vent temp is going to go up because it costs more energy to do the exchange. Sensor temp. Cabin O2 flow is looking good. Oxygen's looking pretty good here. Still 95 percentile on the primer. Haven't hit the secondary yet. Automatically switch to the secondary like around 10%. Alright. Batteries look good here, so let's take a look around the horn. 1, 2, and 3 are good. Standby battery has voltage. ISO has voltage, so we're good there. And that's pretty much it here. We're in high power, UHF. And that's pretty much it. So we're in orbit. Checklist complete. See the the periscope deployed out. We see the Earth here down below us. So, I have a few switches here, so I can zoom in, zoom out. I can change my attitude, rotate my drift. I haven't really played around too much with it. The filter for colors off, green, red, that kind of thing. Again, here's the manual. It's not set manually, but if I wanted to manually retract it, switch to the track scope manual and hit the button. And it retracts it. So I'll hit that back to auto. That's pretty much being in orbit. There's not much to do in this one here. We're going to go through a couple check items here. Is what they would do. They have multiple flight modes. Fly-by-wire, manual, rate command, and then normal is what we're in now. Automatic is normal. So we'll just try these out. These will allow us to maneuver the aircraft directly. So we'll go and set us up for fly-by-wire. So we're going to set AAC is switch to fly-by-wire. So we're still in the auto tanks. So we're still using auto. So anything we burn right now is going to be burned from the auto tank. So I'm going to just kind of rotate around. Let's take a look at the bottom here where it shows the rates. Do a pitch down. See my roll or my pitch is coming down. My rate shows a rate change, and I can center that out. Now I'm about neutral. If I want to go back up to 0, and I can. There we go. Button hold out. So again, I can left, right, and hold out. So just fly-by-wire lets you, directly control. It won't do rate command. Here, let's do rate command. I can show you what that would do. So let's do rate command here. So essentially, I'm going to switch to right-click the rate command. Right, the manual is off, so it's still in auto. See that there? It doesn't quite null the rates, but if I did a lot of rates, it'll try to slow me down to a little bit close to null. So that's what the rate command does. Keeps you from rotating, at a crazy amount. It just does it automatically. It's not quite as good as Gemini or Apollo rates, but it still is something. Again, to go back to normal, just essentially it's pretty simple. But you just go back and normal, auto, and it's going to swing me around to hit 0, 0. Yeah, 0, 0 now. Let's do manual. We're going to switch off to manual here, so I'm not even going to run here. So the first thing I do, pull direct. So now I am currently running off the main tanks. Now I'm going to switch to if I want to do aux damping, I guess keep this ACS switch at auto, or I can move it to rate command. See here, I'm not able to do anything. I'm still in the auto. I want to go to rate command. And this actually won't dampen. Just keep spinning around until I tell it to. And, as you guys know, with the Mercury, there's no way to change my orbit. All I can do is rotational changes. So there's no way I can maneuver closer to the booster if I wanted to maintain formation with it. It's just going to keep on going away from me. I can rotate myself around. Stop about 180 degrees upside down here. No, wrong one. There you go, I'm upside down now. Once I'm done playing, I can go back to normal. And it's pretty simple. Just back to normal, push in. It's going to spin me around. You can see there, I've used some manual in that rotation. And it's also used some auto. So that's just part of it. You have to be careful how you're maneuvering here. Yep. That's pretty much it. That's the capsule there. The retro packs on the back. 3 engines. And that's the window I'm looking at in the front. And here's the periscope on the bottom. It's in the dark here. I may flip around so you can see it. See there? Periscope, and there's a little door it sits in. The periscope pops out of the door there. Switch back to retro here. That's pretty much it for flying the Mercury. We'll kind of time skip a little bit here so that we are doing our retro. So about 2 hours and 42 minutes left. So we're just kind of time skip here. Probably switch back to fly-by-wire so we don't burn any extra fuel. And we'll time skip. So really the next goal is, so we need to do 2 orbits. So we're still in the first one. Let's get back over here to be orbit 1 and orbit 2. Then we'll start setting ourselves up for reentry. Let's kind of go through the checklist here before. There's a few things here. We can do pre-dark, pre-day. So these aren't things really required, but it's just, if you want to be real time in a dark time, then there's some settings here, like, turning, doing the lights, the red for nighttime. The same thing for the photo. You can switch to red here, so it's not so bright. The same thing, the dim, the warning switches that are bright to be dim. And then also it has you do a couple different flight modes to, warm up your flight modes there and to make sure everything works correctly before going in the dark. That's pretty much it. There's a gyro line. I don't have gyro drift enabled, so we're not going to have that problem. That's there too. Some other emergency procedures. We're not going to get into that. But there's really not much on this one. Really, the next big thing is retro, and essentially we're going to start retro at time to retro minus 30 minutes. So we're going to time skip a little bit here. So we're now going to Africa, Madagascar, Indian Ocean, Australia. You see the lights there at the bottom. South Pacific, Hawaii. Now we're on the East Coast here, or the West Coast, sorry. Somewhere. Right there. Mexico. We're just kind of floating, in inertia. That's where attitude looks kind of weird. It's just I'm trying not to burn a lot of fuel when it does corrections when I come out of warp. Let's just keep on going here. So it's like an hour, and essentially we're about 1 orbit away from retro. So it's about an hour and a half for an orbital period. It depends on your altitude, of course, but ours is about an hour and 28 minutes left. We're going to keep time skipping here, and the goal is to land the Atlantic off of Florida somewhere. About an hour away, 40 minutes, and we'll stop at, there we go, T minus 30 minutes. We'll flip this back on norm, so put us back in the right attitude. There we go, starts burning, that's good. We're going to start the pre-retro checklist here. Yeah, T minus 30 minutes, which we are. We want to set the suit temps to cold. Set to cold because reentry is really hot, and we want it to be compensated for that. So it's going to take some time for it to cool down. You can see the cabin temps coming down, suit temps coming down. These are going up because, again, for you to lower the temperature in one, it gets raised in the other. So it's just going to be using these systems a lot more. I'm going to go through and see what we have here. So control fuel looks, we're still good, 3/4 in both tanks. Cabin pressure's holding. Cabin air's, good temp, 50. Suit temp's good at 50, or probably 70 there. Everything else is looking good. Oxygen's still good. And voltage, we'll cycle through the batteries here. So got good amps on everything. So got good volts. And ISO batteries are still looking good. So we're still good there. So I'm going to time warp a little bit till T minus 45, or I'm sorry, 15 minutes. All right. All right, about minus 14 minutes here. So hit Pro, and we're going to go through. Essentially, we have to set up the switches here. So Mercury switch, Mercury Retro fuse on, Mercury Retro fuse on. Now these Mercury Retros, these allow these buttons. These are emergency buttons. They just put them on for us here. Again, we want to. So let's go through this here. Emergency Retro on. Retro rockets 1, 2, and 3 are on. ASCS 0.5, emergency 0.5, 0.05 G switches are both on. So again, it's literally just this light bulb and that button. Periscope fuse is on. That's so it can retract. Com recover A is on. TLM high frequency is on. Squib switch armed. Auto retro jet switch is off. TLM low frequency switch is on. Transmit switch is UHF. Still in UHF. Beacon switch is continuous. Retro jet fuse is off. Retro manual fuse is on. Attitude select switch is retro, which is this one here. This puts us in a retro position or to reentry. So we can keep it for retro because we're in the retro phase right now. And the last thing is to maintain retro attitude. So you can do it automatically or manually. We're in manual. I'm sorry, we're in automatic, normal automatic mode. And it should be 0, 0, 0 approximately. You know, we could even switch it to fly-by-wire if we wanted to get this right here. So maybe I just, it's probably the roll probably doesn't really matter. It's more the pitch and the yaw. So yeah, so I'm just gonna leave it in auto. Doesn't really matter. All right. Essentially, we just move on to the retro checklist here. So we're waiting till. Actually, no, it's a typo. Yeah. Should be T minus 5. T plus 5. All right, so we're waiting for T minus 5. Where are we at here? 11 minutes. We'll just time skip a little bit. There we go. About 5 minutes here. And right at 5 minutes, the 5 minutes retrograde light should come on. Bam, done. Now we're waiting for this. We're just waiting for retro. Everything's ready to go. All the fuses are armed, so we're just waiting. Retro doesn't happen immediately at 0 seconds. It's about 20 some seconds after retro time to retro. We're going to see a couple things here, like retro sequence is going to go green. Retro attitude is amber, and it turns green once you're in the correct retro attitude, which we're already in the correct retro attitude. So they're both. It's going to immediately come up as green. But if you weren't at the right retro attitude, it would be amber until you entered the right attitude. So those two things are going to be green. And you see here again, this is a sequencer here, so top down. I mean, it's literally launch, you know, It's the whole retro thing here. This thing happens first, retro attitude happens next, fire retro happens, jet retro, retract scope. You know, all this happens in sequence to the very bottom where it's landing bag. So this is a sequencer. So everything's off at the moment now. But as soon as we hit 0 time the retrograde, then it will start illuminating. So we'll kind of time skip a little bit. Alright, so we're about 30 seconds away. Attitude looks good. Look outside. Right retro, we're going backwards. That's the right direction we want to be in for retro. 5-minute retro light still on. We're 10 seconds to retro. Retro sequence essentially. And we're looking for retro sequence green, retro at green, and they both are, so that's good. Good start now, about 20 seconds plus. Doesn't really indicate that, but you can just keep track of kind of what it is. But then you'll see the retro fire go amber, and that's when it starts. The retro warning actually happens first. It starts beeping at you what it is doing now. Then retro fire will turn amber when firing. Yep. And we're currently burning now. Look outside. 1, 2, 3 packs. And the fire retro will be green once it's done. And it's amber. It's green. Now jet, now amber, so we'll go to reentry checklist here. What we're going to do, we're going to arm the auto retro jet and turn on the fuse. And we just wait until the retro jets. Jettisons, retro pack jettisons. And it's about, about 60 seconds afterwards. It's off, it's green. So once that's off, then we're going to rotate around. Rotate back around 180 degrees to reentry attitude. See here, there's the pack. We want that behind us. So it's floating away from us currently. And now we are in the correct reentry attitude now. Which is about, it's about 10 degrees pitch up. Everything's green. Now we just sit here and wait until we enter, until we get reentry. And essentially it starts off, once it starts picking up G's, this light will turn green, 0.05 G turns green, and it starts doing things like retracting scope. We'll start our roll. We start entering a 10 degrees per second roll rate. That's pretty much it. So I may just kind of time warp. It's going to be a few minutes. I can see we're wanting to land on the East Coast, but it does take a while for us to lose at altitude. So we're just going to go forward here. Still up here. So, yeah, we hit it. So, 0.05, lights come on. We're starting to roll now. All right. And this checklist is done pretty much. We're just on the landing one. So we'll just have that up ready to go. I'm going to go outside. You can see we're currently rotating now. We're still over to southeast. There's Florida there. we should land kind of right off the coast here. We're still moving pretty fast. You see here, it doesn't take very long to travel distance, so we'll be just fine. As we start getting lower, we start slowing down and start losing more altitude, more and more altitude, and then we'll start coming down straight down. But yeah, we're already about to cross the coast now. And I can't even time skip this. We just have to wait. And so, this one, I mean, it does about everything on its own. As long as you have the right switches set up, it will fly itself. Which, when you move on to the Gemini capsule, it's like a night and day type of difference, and you can do so much more than what you could do in this one. As a computer, you can, orbital maneuvering system. Yeah, the big things here is you want to make sure we're still in the roll. The pitch attitude's still the same. It's going to probably increase as we get lower, which it already kind of has, as we start dragging more in the atmosphere. It's normal. Spinning allows us to be a little more accurate in the descent. Like a rifled bullet is more accurate as it spins. Yep, now we're hitting. See the G's coming up. We're about 5 G's now. This is very strange atmospheric noise. Not exactly sure what the real thing is like, but this one's sounds more like an ominous movie type of noise. We're at 7 G's now. 7.5. There's a neat little trick here. There's 2 little buttons here: set attitude data and manual ascent data. Gives you some little things here, like your vertical orbital speed, apogee. So we're, the perigee's, the lowest part of your orbit, which is the Earth currently, because we already fired retrally. This kind of shows you what our current altitude is. Our highest, the apogee is the highest point in orbit. Currently, it's where we're at now. You see, it's descending pretty low. So about, what is it, 18 kilometers or 27? I can't remember, but that's 100,000 feet. And then it'll start showing up on the altitude at the altimeter here. So orbital speed's really coming down. Vertical speed's even coming down. I'll go and run that so it's ready to start hitting buttons here. Again, nothing to do until we start seeing our altitude on the altimeter. And we're still 41 kilometers up. So just got a little while to go. And again, place is just waiting. can't really time skip this. You just kind of have to wait. Same thing with the launch. We have like this 12-minute launch. It's just you have to sit there and wait. Again, we're too low to have an apogee. So, all right, look at the bottom. We're coming through the altitude here, 70,000 feet. The next thing, I want to make sure our emergency drogue switch is on in case I need it. And since we're waiting for 21,000 feet for the drogue to automatically deploy on its own. If it doesn't, I have the button here to push it. We're looking, and it even tells you at this altitude the drogue comes on. This one do the snorkel, this one does the main. So it gives you little ideas of when to expect. We're just free falling here at about 90 meters per second, slowing down as we go through thicker air. Take that off in case I need to hit it automatically. Wait for the drogue to come on. And there's the drogue. Good to go. Drogue's out. A couple things happened, so we got some O2 alarms going on. I'll just turn it off for this reentry here. I'm going to pull the snorkel. Emergency O2 handle is going to come out. And I'm going to go ahead and start going to get the landing bag armed, ready to go. So once the main comes on, the landing bag starts filling up. Yep, there's the main there. Landing bags, amber is coming on. Main's green. I see it out the window. Okay, you hear all the noises. That's the landing bag filling up. Go and set the direction finder. Set that to receive and transmit. Pressure reg handle out here is going to come out. This is sealed up for the water. Landing bag light is green. And now we're just waiting for landing. Go out the window. That's pretty much it. Top comes off. That's expected. And you see the landing bags deployed out here. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And I mean, this is pretty much the end of the mission. We just gotta, as soon as we land, we turn off the ASCS bus switches. I mean, I don't really even need them on now. Turn that off. Photo light switch. I mean, gonna turn it off. That's pretty much it. We're done. I mean, nothing else to do. So this is Pappy. I'm gonna be signing off. Thanks for sitting with me. I appreciate you watching. I'll try to do Gemini 1 soon. Thanks.